Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Now, the Human Rights Commission has made adverse findings against Stellenbosch University's language policy at certain residences. The institution implemented an English-only policy in some residences back in 2021. The Commission found that the decision unfairly violated human rights, including freedom of expression, language and culture, and the right not to be discriminated against on the basis of language. The DA and the Freedom Front Plus had lodged the complaint. I'm now joined by the SAHRC Commissioner Andre Gaum. He joins us now via Zoom. Commissioner, thank you very much for your time here on eNCA. Just tell us, your full report into the findings at some of the residences in Stellenbosch University, particularly with this language policy.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. Yes, by only requiring English, the Commission found that the unavoidable result was the disallowance of other languages, including Afrikaans, but with a disproportionately severe effect on Afrikaans speakers, given their numbers. So the Commission was satisfied that affected students in these particular residences were at certain times and to certain extents prevented from speaking the language of their choice and pressured or even forced to speak another language, which basically means that it was a requirement to only speak English. So in terms of the Commission's findings, we found that in light of our analysis, that the university, through the residence policies, unfairly violated the human rights of affected students to freedom of expression, language and culture, equality and not to be discriminated against on the basis of language and human dignity. And we have very specific proposed remedial action in this regard, and that is that, first of all, that the university should, through the Office of the Vice-Chancellor, issue a written public apology to any students who were negatively affected by the residence policies. Secondly, that the university should also, within 14 days, through the Office of the Vice-Chancellor, write to all the residence leadership, directing them expressly to not implement English-only or similar language policies, and provide the Commission with a copy of this correspondence, and so forth, that there should also be training of the student leaders to adequately understand the university policy.
And Commissioner, when someone looks at, the complaint and the report, is it fair to narrow it down to particularly Afrikaans, or was this something that the Commission found was unfair treatment to anybody who was not allowed to use any other language except English?
Yes, absolutely. That is what we found. We found that it also violated rights of other of language speakers who are not Afrikaans, because obviously they were not allowed to speak the language of choice in social settings, and were basically required to speak English only. It did also have a disproportionate effect on Afrikaans speakers, as I mentioned, given the number of them that were excluded in this way, but also because there were very specific directions or instructions, whatever you want to call it, not to speak Afrikaans in particular.
Talk to me about the danger that this whole subject poses because of the painful history that we have as a country. Therefore, obviously this came, Stellenbosch actually reacted this way to the Afrikaans policy, as Afrikaans was at some point the medium of instruction. And therefore they reacted in the way that they did, and they obviously thought they were doing something right. But because of our history, what danger does it pose in terms of maybe, one day Afrikaans just not being used at all, or probably Afrikaans-speaking people feeling attacked?
Yeah, I think it's important to note, first of all, that we do have 11 official languages in our country, and that our own constitution makes mention of unity in diversity and emphasizes the importance of diversity. So diversity is something to celebrate. Yes, it is indeed important to be inclusive, but inclusivity should also not be used in a manner that becomes exclusivity in the end.
Mr. Gaum, thank you so much for speaking to us here on eNCA and on All Angles. We'll get reaction from the university and hopefully the DA and Freedom Front Plus. It's also about the fact that it's these two political parties that make South Africans question it. But that was Andre Gaum. He is a commissioner at the South African Human Rights Commission.